Imagine cruising down the street in a wood-paneled station wagon, kids riding their banana seat bikes, and neighbors grilling up burgers on their backyard barbecues. Welcome to the suburban paradise of the 1970s, a place where life was as vibrant and eclectic as the fashions of the time. In the heart of every 1970s home was the kitchen, a hub of family life. As the cost of living crept up, families gathered around the table to enjoy meals and make memories. From avocado green appliances to the clunky yet charming microwave, every gadget was a symbol of the era's innovation and ambition. Step out into the city, and you'd find a different kind of energy. The nightlife was buzzing with neon lights and the pulse of disco beats. People danced their nights away in polyester suits and bell-bottoms, while the silver screen offered a peek into a world of glamorous escapism. The 70s were a time of bold patterns, bright colors, and unforgettable styles. Vintage shops today are like treasure troves of nostalgia, full of pieces that defined an era. Technology was also on the rise. The microwave was the new kitchen marvel, promising to make cooking quicker and easier. Personal computers were just beginning to emerge, offering a glimpse into a future that would soon change everything. Even with all these changes, the 1970s was a time of close-knit communities and simple pleasures. People still found joy in picnics at the park and neighborhood get-togethers, even as they navigated the ups and downs of a shifting economy and evolving technology. Let's set the stage with a glimpse into what daily life was like in the 1970s. This decade was marked by significant social and cultural shifts, reflecting both the turbulence and the transformation of the era. Cost of living compared to today in the early 1970s looks like this. The average cost of a new car was around $3,500, and the price of a gallon of gas was about 36 cents. When you fast forward to today in 2024, you're looking at a new car averaging over $45,000 and gas prices fluctuating around $3 to $4 per gallon around the US, with the highest being Hawaii sitting at $4.68, which goes to show that inflation has certainly had its impact. With that, housing costs have also seen a dramatic increase. In the 1970s, the average cost of a home in the US was approximately $26,000. Today, the median home price has skyrocketed to over $400,000 in many areas. But it's not just the big-ticket items. Even everyday groceries have seen a dramatic price increase. Like a loaf of bread, for example, cost around 25 cents back then, whereas today, you might pay $3 to $4. And despite these rising costs, wages have not kept pace with inflation, which has contributed to the growing economic disparity we see today. Now that we've seen what it costs to live in the 70s, let's explore what a typical family looked like and their day-to-day. This was a time of great change in family dynamics. The traditional nuclear family was evolving. And by nuclear family, I mean a family consisting of two parents and their children. But there was an increasing variety of family forms. Divorce rates began to rise, reflecting changes in societal attitudes towards marriage and individual fulfillment. The introduction of the no-fault divorce laws in many states made it easier for couples to separate without having to prove fault, contributing to the increase in divorce rates. Single-parent households became more common, and there was a growing acceptance of blended families, where one or both partners had children from previous relationships. The 1970s were a pivotal decade for women's rights. The feminist movement made substantial progress, leading to greater participation of women in the workforce. By the end of the decade, nearly half of all women were employed outside the home, a significant increase from previous decades. With more women working, traditional roles within the household began to shift. Dual-income households became more common, changing the dynamics of home life. Men increasingly took on more domestic responsibilities, although the shift was gradual and not uniformly experienced across all families. Also, television was a major centerpiece of family life. Families often gathered around the TV to watch popular shows like Happy Days, MASH, and The Brady Bunch. This era also saw the rise of family-oriented TV programming and the beginning of reality TV with shows like The Real World in the late 70s. Technology in the 70s was undergoing rapid transformation. Personal computing was just beginning, with the introduction of the first microprocessors and early computers. Steve Jobs introduced the Apple I, one of the first computers designed for personal use. Unlike its predecessors, the Apple I was a fully assembled computer, which made it more accessible to a broader audience. This marked the beginning of Apple Inc.'s journey and set the stage for future innovations. The fax machine became a more common office tool in the 1970s. Although the technology for faxing had been around since the 1960s, it became more affordable and accessible during this decade. Fax machines allowed businesses to send documents quickly over telephone lines, revolutionizing office communication. The 70s also saw the birth of video game consoles, such as the Magnavox Odyssey, marking the beginning of the video game industry. Children spent hours glued to the early consoles, their faces lit up with excitement. It was the start of a digital revolution that would soon take over the world. Television technology was advancing, with the transition from black and white to color TVs becoming widespread. This decade also witnessed the popularization of the VCR, which revolutionized home entertainment by allowing people to record and watch movies at their convenience. And today, we're surrounded by advanced technology far beyond what was imagined in the 70s, like smartphones, streaming services, and smart home devices, just to name a few examples of how far we've come since then. When we look at the culture in the 70s, we really see a breeding ground for new cultural movements. The decade saw the rise of disco music, epitomized by artists like the Bee Gees and Donna Summer, and the iconic Saturday Night Fever. Disco wasn't just about music. It was about dance, fashion, and a whole lifestyle that emphasized fun and self-expression. The punk rock movement also emerged, characterized by bands like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols. Punk was a reaction against the mainstream music scene, embracing a raw, rebellious style that had an impact on music and fashion. The 1970s also saw the rise of the singer-songwriter genre, with artists like James Taylor, Carole King, and Joni Mitchell gaining popularity. Their introspective lyrics and acoustic sounds reflected a more personal and reflective approach to music. Folk music experienced a resurgence, with artists blending traditional folk elements with contemporary themes. Soul and funk music also flourished during the 1970s. Artists like Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and George Clinton's Parliament Funkadelic brought soulful melodies and innovative rhythms to the forefront, influencing the development of modern R&B and hip-hop. We even saw the early stirrings of the environmental movement, with the first Earth Day celebrated in 1970 and increased awareness about environmental issues. Fashion in the 70s was vibrant, reflecting the diverse influences of the era. Bell-bottom jeans, platform shoes, and bold prints were all the rage. Vintage shops today are like treasure troves of nostalgia, full of pieces that defined an era. The hippie movement brought in a more laid-back style, featuring tie-dye shirts and flowing skirts. Wide-brimmed hats were a popular accessory for both men and women, adding a dramatic flair to outfits, and were often worn with casual and formal attire, reflecting the emphasis on bold fashion statements. Jewelry in the 70s was characterized by large, bold pieces. Chunky necklaces, oversized hoop earrings, and layered bracelets were common. Materials ranged from gold and silver to colorful plastics and natural stones, adding a touch of personality to any outfit. Punk fashion was a radical departure from mainstream styles. It was characterized by torn clothing, safety pins, leather jackets, and a DIY aesthetic. Punk icons like Susie and the Banshees used fashion to make a statement against the establishment, emphasizing individuality and rebellion. Today's fashion can still draw inspiration from the 70s. However, contemporary fashion tends to favor a mix of styles, often blending modern trends with nostalgic elements from the past. High-waisted jeans, for example, are making a return, reflecting the cyclical nature of fashion trends. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Share your thoughts on the 1970s in the comments below. What do you find most fascinating about this era? And what kind of videos should I do next? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.